Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of us. I'm excited to have you all here today as we explore one of the most transformative periods in the history of mathematics, the beginning of mathematics in ancient Greece. Now you might be wondering, why Greece? What was so special about this time and place that set the stage for the mathematical concept we still use today? And that will be discussed for this video. But before we start, let us introduce ourselves. I'm Clarence James S. Blanco.
Hi, I'm Daniela May M. Vidal.
We are the students from Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State University, currently pursuing Bachelor of Secondary Education major in Mathematics. Now, for today's discussion, we will be talking about key mathematicians of Greece, starting with Thales of Miletus, Pythagoras of Samos, Euclid of Alexandria, Eratosthenes of Alexandria, and Zeno of Elea. Take note that they are not the only mathematicians during this period of ancient Greece. There's a lot of mathematicians during that period, but we chose these mathematicians based on their popularity and their significant contribution to the beginning of mathematics in ancient Greece. So before we proceed to the discussion, let's watch this 5 minutes video as an introduction.
No group has been associated with a higher impact on mathematics than the ancient Greeks, from figures such as Thales, the first mathematician, to Euclid, the father of geometry. The Greeks have shaped the subject and our world, so let's find out what they actually did. We start around 624 BC, when Thales of Miletus was born. He's often recognized as the first mathematician in Western civilization. Instead of using religion or mythology, Thales tried to explain natural phenomena with a scientific approach. He discovered the aptly named Thales theorem, which is thought to be the first attributable mathematical discovery. This is a circle theorem and can allow you to create a right-angled triangle with just a piece of string and a nail. Shortly after Thales, we come to the most famous figure on this journey, Pythagoras. Pythagoras is pretty much a household name, with everyone familiar with his theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This discovery, however, was seen in ancient Egyptian, Babylonian and Indian civilizations. So why is Pythagoras credited with it? Well, he founded a religion called Pythagoreanism, where he and his followers, amongst other things, worshipped mathematics. Through his following, it is likely his ideas gathered the traction and emphasis to extend beyond his lifetime. Unlike Thales, Pythagoras was concerned with the mysticism and divinity of numbers, in a belief called numerology. Travelling further forward in time, we arrive to one of the first paradoxes. Mathematicians are quite fascinated with paradoxes and the logical conundrum they raise, and the first of these were devised by Zeno of Elea. We now refer to these as Zeno's paradoxes, with an example such as the paradox of motion. Imagine you want to run a 100-meter race. You have to first run half the distance, which is 50 meters, but before doing that, you have to run a quarter of the distance, 25 meters. Before running a quarter, you have to run 1/8, and before 1/8, 1/16, and so on. This is an infinite number of tasks, and as such you will never arrive to your destination. We now know this is not the case, and in fact infinite series sums like this can converge to a number. Let's move to our first quick fire round. Democritus made huge scientific advances by establishing the formulation of atomic theory, and contributed to mathematics by finding the volume of a cone. Three figures laid the very foundation of Western philosophy, maths and science. Socrates was the founder of modern philosophy and influenced the practice of science to come. His student Plato was a polymath with writings and teachings in philosophy, science and maths, setting up the first Western higher education institute, the Academy of Athens. And Plato's student Aristotle, considered the father of modern philosophy, is the first known person to formally study logic, including its applications in science and mathematics. Around 300 BC, Euclid, the father of geometry, was born. His book The Elements introduced the aptly named Euclidean geometry, and contained important proofs about geometry and number theory. This textbook was so influential it still appears in some form as a required reading in some universities over 2,000 years later, and it influenced figures such as Newton and Einstein. Euclid taught mathematics in Alexandria, but not much else is known about his life. One of the greatest mathematicians of all time was born around 287 BC. This was Archimedes. He discovered the concept of calculus thousands of years before Newton and Leibniz, as well as works on geometry and mechanics. For the field of mathematics, he further developed the method of exhaustion, which laid the foundation for integral calculus, and using this he was able to find a great deal, such as the value of pi, which he determined to lay between 3.1408 and 3.1429. One of the greatest astronomers of antiquity, Hipparchus of Nicaea, was also the father of trigonometry. He constructed and possessed what is believed to be the first trigonometric table. Using this he was reliably able to predict solar eclipses and other astronomical events. This also cemented him as the father of astronomy. He was the inventor of the astrolabe, and these were used to tell the time during day or night, to identify the time of sunrise and sunset, and to locate celestial objects in the sky, and later it was instrumental to seaborne navigation. Let's end with a final quickfire round. The sieve of Eratosthenes was developed around the 3rd century BC by Eratosthenes of Cyrene. This was the first efficient way to calculate prime numbers. Hero of Alexandria developed a method for calculating the area of any triangle. We now call this Hero's theorem. Diophantine equations are an important area of research today, and these were developed by Diophantus around the 3rd century. In fact, while reading one of Diophantus's books, Pierre de Fermat proposed that one of these equations had no solution. This later became Fermat's last theorem, a millennium problem that was only solved in 1994 and has the most unsuccessful proofs of any theorem in history. Finally, Hypatia was a prominent mathematician in Alexandria around the 4th century, writing commentaries on many books of her time and constructing tools such as astrolabes and hydrometers. She is regarded as the first female mathematician whose life and work is recorded. However, it was not just the Greeks that established mathematical foundations. Did you know, for much of Greek history, they did not have a well-defined concept of zero. So who actually discovered zero? Click the video to find out, and subscribe for more maths, history and science content. Thanks for watching.
And that concludes the 5 minutes video presentation. So as an introduction, ancient Greece was pivotal in transforming mathematics from a practical, everyday tool into a highly systematic, abstract discipline grounded in logic and reasoning. Before Greek mathematicians, much of mathematics was primarily concerned with practical applications, such as counting, measuring lands, or constructing buildings. While ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Babylonians, they made significant contributions to arithmetic and geometry, their approach was largely empirical. This means that they're only focused on solving real-life problems through trial and error. What set the Greek apart was their shift in perspective. Greek mathematicians such as Pythagoras, Euclid, and Archimedes began to view mathematics not just as a tool for solving specific problems, but as a field of study that could uncover universal truth through reason and logical deductions. Now, the key mathematicians of ancient Greece. Thales of Miletus. So, Thales of Miletus. He is a Greek philosopher, mathematician, and astronomer, widely recognized to be one of the 7 sages of Greece and often regarded as first known mathematician in Western history. So, he is widely regarded as one of the 7 sages of Greece. These 7 sages of Greece is a group of 7 renowned philosophers and statesmen of ancient Greece who were celebrated for their wisdom. So, Thales of Miletus is often called the first known mathematicians in Western history. This title underscores his groundbreaking contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. His approach marked a departure from mythological explanations of the world by laying the groundwork for the rise of rational and scientific thinking in ancient Greece. And now let's talk about his contribution. So it starts with Thales' theorem and measurements using geometry. So take note that, guys, that here is his contribution. In fact, he made a lot of contributions, but we will be focusing on this one since they are pretty popular contributions. So starting with Thales' theorem. So Thales' theorem is often associated with circle and a right triangle due to its geometric implications. The theorem can be stated in a couple of closely related ways, but they essentially describe the same principles. So Thales' theorem is one of the earliest and most important results in geometry, attributed to Thales of Miletus. This is also first attributable mathematical discovery, and it is associated with circle and right triangle. First, let's talk about the circle. So the application of Thales' theorem in circle is that if A, B, and C are points on a circle where AC is the diameter of the circle, then the angle ABC is a right angle, which is exactly 90 degrees. So let's focus on this illustration. Imagine that the AB here is a diameter and the C is the other third point. According to the Thales theorem application in the circle, it says that if the third point is connected to the both vertex of the diameter, which is the A and B, they will form a right angle on angle ACB. Then, even if we move the third point, which is the C, it will still form a right angle. So look at the transformation. So the C from the bottom, it's still right angle. But if we move the third point to another point in the circumference of a circle, as long as it is connected to the diameter, it will still form a right angle. Now let's talk about the application of Thales theorem in triangle. That is, in a triangle ABC, if line DE is drawn parallel to the one side of the triangle, such as the line segment BC, and it intersects the other two sides, such as the line segment AB and AC at points D and E, respectively, then the line divides these two sides proportionally. So this means that on here, the line segment DE is drawn parallel to line segment BC, and it divides the triangle into two proportionally. Therefore, this conclusion can be used as a base on Thales theorem. The conclusion of Thales on here is that the line segment AD over line segment DB is equal to the line segment AE and over EC. So this formula can be used in proving similar triangles that is related to this Thales theorem. And now, let's proceed to the measurements using geometry. So, according to the legend, Thales theorem's most spectacular accomplishment while in Egypt was his indirect measurement of the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza by means of shadows. Thales was also known as mathematicians who measured the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is related to similar triangle. So the formula of this is height 1 over height 2 is equal to the shadow 1 over shadow 2. Now look at the illustrations provided. So take notice at this. So according to the legend, the height of the pyramid is the one being measured here. And then at exact time, imagine for example it is at 12 o'clock. The sun casts a shadow to a pyramid which is 342 feet long. Then Thales already know that in order to measure the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza, he must measure the another half of the pyramid, which is 378 feet. Then he added those two measurements and arrived to 720 feet. The 720 feet here is the representation for the first shadow. Then at exactly same time, there's a person standing in front of him, which is 6 feet tall. Then the sun casts a shadow to him, which is 9 feet. Now that Thales got all the measurements that he needs, then he proceeds to solving it. So now let's substitute all the findings, or the data. So the height 2 is 6, which is the height of the human, and the 720 is the shadow cast by the sun ray. Then the 9 here is the shadow of the human. Now, by using cross multiple, we will have here height of the Great Pyramid of Giza is equal to 6 times 720 all over by 9. Now, if we simplify this formula, we will get 480 feet. And that is the true measurements of Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, let's proceed to Pythagoras of Samos. So, Pythagoras of Samos, a Greek philosopher and a mathematician best known for his contributions to mathematics and his role in founding the Pythagorean school of thought. So, Pythagoras and his followers not only made advances in geometry but also contributed to the way we think about the connections between mathematics, philosophy, and the natural world. His work inspired centuries of mathematicians, philosophers, and scientists and remains foundational in various fields of study. His contribution includes Pythagorean theorem and Pythagorean school. So take note guys that this is not the only contributions Pythagoras made. There's a lot of contributions he made, but these one are the most significant. So starting with Pythagoras of theorem. So Pythagoras of theorem, it states that in a right angled triangle, the square of the length of the hypotenuse which is the side opposite to the right angle, is equal to the sum of the squares of the lengths of the other two sides. Now, let's provide an example here. Example, suppose you have a right angle triangle with one side measuring 3 units and the other side measuring 4 units. So we want to find the length of the hypotenuse. Now, here's the substitution. So 3 as our leg 1, then 4 as our leg 2, then the C is the hypotenuse. Then let's substitute this to the formula, which is 3 square plus 4 square is equal to C square. Now, we will just simplify it by 3 square is equal to 9, while 4 square is equal to 16. Then just bring down the C square. Now if we add those two, 9 plus 16, it will be equal to 25. Now let's bring down again the C square. Then let's use square root to extract the root of 25 and C square. Now it will result to C is equal to 5. Now that will be the length of our hypotenuse here. It will be 5 units. Now let's proceed to Pythagorean school. So the Pythagorean school was a philosophical and religious community founded by Pythagoras in 16th century BCE on the island of Samos. Thus, the school is known for its contributions to mathematics, philosophy, and mysticism. So the Pythagorean school was pioneering institutions that blended mathematics, philosophy, and religion. Its members viewed the universe through a lens of mathematical harmony, and their belief in the mystical power of numbers helped shape the development of mathematics and philosophy in the Western world. So the influence of Pythagoreans can still be seen today in the field like number theory, geometry, and even the philosophy of mathematics. So here's the illustration of the Pythagorean school of Samos. The one on the left is the old picture, while the one on the right is the newest picture, or the latest one. Now let's proceed to the Pythagorean school's belief. Number 1, they refused to eat beans, drink wine, pick up anything that had fallen, or stir fire with an iron. So they refused to eat beans since the Pythagoreans believed that the beans contains the soul of their members. In Pythagoreanism, or Pythagoreans, they believe in transmigration of soul, wherein the soul will left the body when they died, then it will move to another body. They also refuse to drink wine since for them, the wine will affect the purity of their souls. And they refuse also to pick up anything that had fallen, since they believe that once it is fallen, it will be contaminated, which will affect the purity of their soul. And stir fire with an iron, because for them, fire represents life, while iron represents war and conflict. If they stir the fire with an iron, it means war will come to their life. And the five-pointed star or pentagram was used as a sign whereby the members of the brotherhood could recognize one another. So the five-pointed star or pentagram was used as a sign. There is a story that when Pythagoras was dying, he went to a certain house where the maid helped her. Before Pythagoras died, he wrote pentagram, it is a symbol, then told the maid to display it in front of her door. Months had passed. Pythagoras died, then a member of school came and saw the symbols, which he approached the maid and asked her why is the pentagram displayed on her door. Then the ladies told the member, where after that the member rewarded her a money and other things. Now, the Pythagorean fancied the souls could leave one's body either temporarily or permanently. So this is the one I'm talking about, the transmigration of soul. Now let's proceed to Euclid of Alexandria, which will be discussed by my team, which is Daliela May Vidal.
The next prominent mathematician to consider is Euclid of Alexandria. Euclid of Alexandria, often referred to as the father of geometry, was a Greek mathematician who flourished around 300 BCE. He is best known for his work Elements, a comprehensive compilation of the knowledge of geometry of his time. This influential text systematically presented the principles of geometry, laying the groundwork for the subject and shaping mathematical educations for centuries. Euclid's methods of rigorous proof and logical deduction have had a lasting impact, making his contributions fundamental to both mathematics and the philosophy of science. Euclid and its elements. First, let's talk about the structure of elements. Euclid's Elements consist of 13 books, each focusing on different areas of mathematics with a clear and logical progression from basic geometric principles to more complex concepts. Together, these books form a comprehensive and rigorous treatment of geometry, number theory, and the foundations of mathematics, making Elements a cornerstone of mathematical education for centuries. Structure of Elements. The first 6 books focus on plane geometry, dealing with points, lines, angles, triangles, parallelograms, and circles. Books 7 to 9 cover number theory, including prime numbers and the theory of proportions. Book 10 explores irrational numbers. Book 11 to 13 delve into the three-dimensional geometry, including the study of polyhedra. Second, the axiomatic approach of Euclid. Euclid's axiomatic approach in Elements is a systematic method of presenting mathematical knowledge through a series of basic, self-evident principles, called axioms or postulates, on which all further theorems are logically built. This approach forms the foundation of Euclidean geometry and has had a lasting impact on the development of mathematics. First, the definition. Euclid provides precise definition for key geometric concepts such as points, lines, angles, and circle. This definition ensures clarity and consistency throughout the work. Axioms and postulate. Euclid begins with a small set of axioms and postulates that are considered self-evidently true. These are basic statements like things which are equal to the same thing are equal to each other, or a straight line can be drawn between any 2 points. These serve as the foundation of deriving more complex results. Using these axioms, postulates, and definitions, Euclid derives propositions, or also known as theorems. Each proposition is rigorously proven step by step, with each step building on previous results. This deductive reasoning ensures the validity of the entire system. Next to Euclid is Eratosthenes of Alexandria. Eratosthenes was acknowledged to be the foremost scholar of his day and was undoubtedly one of the most learned men of the antiquity. Eratosthenes is most famous for developing the first known method of measuring the Earth's size. By comparing the angles of the sun's rays at 2 different locations in Egypt, Alexandria and Siena, he was able to estimate the Earth's circumference with impressive precision, a feat that was far ahead of its time. In Alexandria, Eratosthenes measured the angle of the shadow cast by a vertical stick, or also known as gnomon, at noon on the solstice. He found that the angle of the shadow was about 7.2 degrees, which is 1/50th of a full circle. This indicated that the sun's rays were striking Alexandria at an angle of 7.2 degrees from the vertical. Eratosthenes assumed that the sun's rays were essentially parallel because the sun is so far away. Therefore, the difference in the angle of the sun's rays between Alexandria and Siena was due to the curvature of the Earth. Eratosthenes knew that the Alexandria and Siena were approximately 800 kilometers apart along the Nile River. This distance served as the arc length of the Earth's circumference between the 2 cities. Eratosthenes reasoned that if the angle between the sun's rays in Alexandria and Siena was 7.2 degrees, then the distance between the 2 cities, is 800 kilometers, represented 1/50th of the Earth's total circumference. To find the full circumference, he multiplied the distance by 50. So, to measure the circumference of the Earth, 800 kilometers times 50 is equal to 40,000 kilometers. Eratosthenes' estimate of 40,000 kilometers for the Earth's circumference was very close to the modern measurement of about 40,075 kilometers. While the actual figure may have been slightly different due to errors in measuring distance or assumptions about the shape of the Earth, his method was an incredible achievement, providing a remarkably accurate estimate of the Earth's size based on simple observations and geometric reasoning. This measurement is one of the earliest examples of using scientific observation and mathematical reasoning to understand the natural world. Last but not the least, Zeno of Elea. Zeno was originally a Pythagorean and, like Pythagoras, played an active part in the politics of his native city. Zeno is remembered today for 4 clever paradoxes preserved by Aristotle in his Physics about the reality of motion. Zeno's paradox of motion, also known as the paradox of the arrow, is one of his famous philosophical arguments that challenges our understanding of motion and change. The paradox asserts that an arrow in flight is paradoxically at rest at every single moment of its trajectory. Zeno's paradox of Achilles and the tortoise is another of his famous thought experiments designed to challenge our understanding of motion, time, and infinity. It involves 2 characters, Achilles, the great Greek hero known for his speed, and a tortoise who is much slower. Zeno's paradox suggests that Achilles, despite being faster, can never overtake the tortoise if the tortoise has had a head start. Achilles gives the tortoise a head start in a race. Let's say the tortoise is 10 meters ahead of Achilles. Zeno argues that before Achilles can overtake the tortoise, he must first reach the point where the tortoise started. By the time Achilles reaches that point, the tortoise will have moved a little further ahead, though still a smaller distance. Then, Achilles must reach the point where the tortoise has moved to, but by the time he does, the tortoise will have moved yet another small distance. This process continues infinitely. Each time Achilles reaches the place where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a little further, and so Achilles has to cover an infinite number of steps to reach the tortoise. Zeno's conclusion from this reasoning is that Achilles will never actually pass the tortoise because at each moment there is actually a smaller distance left for him to cover. Even though Achilles is moving much faster, the infinite sequence of steps that he must take, each step corresponding to a smaller and smaller distance, makes it seem as though the tortoise will always stay ahead no matter how fast Achilles runs. This paradox served as a key challenge in ancient philosophy and mathematics, pushing thinkers to grapple with the concepts of infinity, continuity, and the nature of motion, issues that were eventually addressed through the development of calculus and the theory of limits. That concludes our presentation on the key mathematicians of ancient Greece and their significant contributions to the development and evolution of mathematics as a discipline. We hope that this session had provided invaluable insights and deepened your appreciation for the enduring beauty of mathematics. Thank you for your attention.